Hello, everyone. My name is Willia Eaglehawk, and I'm the BTS theorist. I'm a sociologist, a social theorist, a full-time army, and the author of Idle Limerence, The Art of Loving BTS as Phenomena. I make books all about BTS and ARMY, and now I'm making podcasts too. On the BTS Theorist, I want to bring to you stories from within the fandom and new perspectives on BTS and ARMY. Think of this as a place where I share ideas, experiences, and observations all about those 7 men we love so much, and the fandom that journeys next to them. Plus, I'll bring in people to interview from time to time just to keep it fresh. If you're an ARMY, it's so good to have you here. If you're a curious onlooker, hi. I hope you find this episode informative and that you walk away with a better understanding of just what makes BTS and ARMY so good. On today's episode, I am fortunate enough to be interviewing an essayist from my latest book project, I Am ARMY, We Don't Need Permission. This book features a collection of essays from ARMY from around the world that share their stories of how they found BTS and who on earth they are. All right, so it's time for me to introduce today's guest. Today, I am joined by Paola Rivera, who is an aspiring author and an English graduate from Puerto Rico. She started writing creatively from a young age and dreams of publishing novels and poetry collections. Now residing in New York City, she spends her free time traveling, writing, and exploring. Her essay is titled On Being Found, and I'm so excited to share more about it with you all on this episode. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Joining us from, is it cold? Is it winter time in New York?
It's technically winter, but it's not that cold. It's not, supposedly it's going to snow tomorrow, but it hasn't been snowing. It's like in the 40s right now. So, yeah.
Great. We just had one of those awesome moments where the internet dropped out.
Yeah.
It was so funny right before I was like, if the internet drops out when we're recording this, just smile and nod and be like, everything's fine.
Yeah. When you were introducing yourself, it happened.
So did it? You're like, this is great. Did you manage to hear me trying to pronounce your name? Did it come back in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I wish it skipped out for that so you didn't have to hear me. Okay. Now you know. I swear this podcast series is more like me trying to pronounce other people's names. And I guess it's revenge because people have not pronounced my name right, my whole life. Yeah. So now I get to experience it with other people from other countries. I'm like, wow. Anyway, just a reminder that I am chronically white. Anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. All right. Okay. So, of course, you are an amazing essayist in this story, and your essay covers how you found BTS and what your life looked like before BTS and kind of the journey you went on with them. But first, the first question I ask everyone is, how did you find BTS and become an ARMY? Like, what year was it? Where were you? What were you doing? Take us on that journey.
Okay, so it was 2020. I feel like a lot of people became ARMY in 2020. We were stuck in our houses, so there wasn't much to do. But I think that the whole premise of my essay is not so much about how I found BTS or how I became an ARMY. It was more like how they found me and how like I was just minding my own business. I wasn't really looking for anything. I wasn't really like curious about them at all. They just sort of barged into my life and they were like, oh, we're here and we're not leaving. Right. So I'm going to read an excerpt from the essay to give a little bit of context of what was going on.
We love excerpts here. So please, let's, okay. I'm excited for people to hear kind of the journey of what it's like to first experience BTS, because you write about it so beautifully. So take it away.
Thank you. Okay. So a little bit of context. It was during their iHeartRadio performance. Okay. The stage was decorated with bright colors, simulating a city. The camera moved slowly to the center, focusing on the gates of an old-fashioned elevator, the ones you had to manually open. I could see my first glimpse of them through the hole of the elevator gate before they slid it open and walked out one by one. They wore vibrant colors matching the stage. If I had to describe the look they were going for, I would have to say a modern take on the 70s. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. Maybe it was because compared to all the artists who had performed prior to them, who had generic stages and outfits, this seemed different, refreshing. Despite having to perform in front of cameras instead of a crowd of people, they put thought and effort into their stage design. My eyes moved with camera, focusing on each one of for less than a second. There was too much going on. I could feel the anticipation in me growing, heightening by my stepsister's cheers of excitement. A high-pitched pop voice started to sing. Because I am in the stars tonight. The first verse of the song. I'm not going to sing it. The camera honed in on one of the band members. He was at the center. He had ruffled black hair with a suit of the same color with white vertical lines. He opened the song with a huge smile on his face. It radiated confidence, like he knew what was coming was a top-tier performance. It was contagious. I felt enjoyment for the first time in days. To my surprise, my stepsister followed their choreography naturally. I later learned that this is something ARMY does for fun. I'm not sure if it was their upbeat music, charisma, choreography, or overall stage presence that left me in awe, but I could not take my eyes off the screen. For the entirety of the 4 songs they performed, I was completely enthralled by them. Never had I heard a single song by them, and yet there I was completely mesmerized by their music. Something had clicked inside my brain. For the first time in days, I had felt something that was not rooted in fear or helplessness. I felt hope. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I go back to that performance every once in a while because I feel like every time I see it, I notice something different. I notice a different interaction. I see them doing something fun. You know, they're not just dancing. Sometimes they were throwing finger hearts to the audience, or sometimes they were being playful with each other. And I go back to that feeling that I had that night. Something that I later learned was when they were talking about why they released Dynamite and how Dynamite was more like just, it was a fun song they just released during the pandemic just to give joy to people, right? And that's something that I really needed at that time, because prior to that, a few days before, which I talk about it more in my essay, I had gone through a very, very bad experience. I was living alone for the first time, and a man broke into my apartment, right? And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. Writing this essay, I cried a lot because, I had to relieve that moment. I'm sorry. I had to relieve that moment. I had to describe it. And I didn't know that even after all this time, it's still, even talking about it now, it still affected me. I was diagnosed with PTSD after it happened. So, for perspective, I was in a very dark place, and then I was sitting there watching TV, and my stepsister, who I knew she liked BTS, so I knew them by name. Like, I knew BTS existed. She came in and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch the Our Heart Radio performance," and she played it, and I stayed there because I had nothing else to do. My computer was stolen, my laptop was stolen, everything was stolen. So I was just there, like, okay, it's either this or I go to sleep. So I just stayed there, and I watched it, and I was just like, "Oh, this is nice," And it's like I said, like their energy was so contagious, and it's something that I really needed. It was escapism. And I dove right into it because I needed something to take me away from what had happened. I needed something to completely just take my mind off of it, because that's all I could think about. So I was like, okay, I need to think about something else, and that something else became, BTS. And even after I started healing from that process, from what had happened, I realized that there were a lot of things in my life that I needed healing from, a lot of, traumas growing up. And they talked about a lot of them through their music. And yeah, I just start crying here. Sorry.
It's beautiful though. Like, yeah. The emotions are right there, right? Like, they don't go away, even if you think that time, because time has passed, but it's still, it's not even been 3 years. So it's pretty recent. It's
The
fresh.
song, the song that always, one of the songs that, I mean, a lot of their songs made me cry, let's be honest. But one song that really makes me cry, like every time it comes on and I'm in public, I have to like skip it because I can just not listen to it. It's Magic Shop. And I talk a little bit about it, right? And it's the part where they say, like, you gave me the best of me, so you give you the best of you. Like that, it's like you're like, I just think about like how we, as army, as a group, you know we push them, we give them like all of this, like, I guess I wouldn't say we give them their success, but we are part of it, right? We are the ones that, we listen to their music, we support them if they want to, any project they do, we want to support it because, we support their art. And it's kind of like them saying, like, if you're willing to do all of this for us, you should also be willing to give that same love and dedication to yourself. And that just like it really fucked me up when I heard the song. I was like, oh no. And I just cry every time I listen to that specific part because it's just so, yeah. So, and I know that my friends actually, none of my friends like BTS. They don't. But I know that, actually one eventually got into BTS. But anyways, that's not the point. I remember one of them once told me, he told me, I'll never understand what they mean to you. But he said, like, I can see the shift in you when you start, liking them, and when you started standing them after what had happened. He was like, you needed something good, you needed hope, and they were that. And he was like, I'll never understand because he'll never like be able to be in my shoes, but he can recognize, you know, and yeah, I can keep talking about it. So just stop me. Stop me.
I mean, we're here to listen to you speak. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was so beautiful. So do you reckon, like there's that really popular fandom saying that BTS finds you when you need them most. Is that what happened for you?
I do believe so, because I feel like I had a lot of chances to know about them. My stepsister was really into them. I remember at that time I had a friend that was really, really, really into them. I had heard about them. Like, I knew of their existence. I was into K-pop for a few years ago, and I kind of felt out of it for a while. So like the opportunities were there. They just, for some reason, I never had this curiosity of just sitting down and being like, oh, let me like listen to them. Let me like check it out. And then until like I was put in this position of like, oh, it's time. It's time. And it almost felt like life kept distracting me and taking me onto these other paths, saying like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And then like when I needed it, it was like, okay, like I feel like now it's the moment where they need to come into your life, because like there's nothing else, there's
And
nothing
you
else
would,
that's going to like take you out of that hole.
yeah, for sure. And because you had just gone through something incredibly traumatic, and you do kind of like, this is the main part of your essay that you really delve into, is like the pivotal moment, the turning point, or like the really bad part before the positive turning point anyway. So I was wondering if you could just read out an excerpt about what happened on the night, and then we can talk about it a little bit, even though you've kind of said a little bit about what happened. But I really want to take our listeners to that place so they really understand where you're coming from.
Okay, let's go. On September 15th, 2020, midnight, I went to sleep early because of work. I was living in a small first floor studio apartment. It had a small kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. Despite having a door that separated my room from the kitchen, the space was tight and everything was close together. Still, it was my own space, and I spent a few months making it feel like home. To this day, I'm not sure why I woke up that night. I just did. Maybe it would have been better if I had just pretended like I was asleep. Nevertheless, I woke up and the first thing I saw was the door to my room open. But that wasn't the most alarming part. On the other side of the door of my apartment door was also open. For a moment, my entire body froze. Then I felt my entire body warm up quickly. I cautiously moved towards the front door and closed it. Something was wrong, and for a moment, I tried to brush it off. Maybe I had not closed the doors properly, and my cats pushed it open. Right beside my door, I had my cat tower, where they often took naps. Only this time, they were all looking towards the door to my room, intensely, defensively. I wonder if they were just as terrified as I was. I knew it then. Someone was in my room.
Oh my gosh.
And I it's
terrifying.
And I skipped. I decided to leave out a lot of details because it was really hard to write about it, but I can talk about it. So yeah, so I'm in that moment. I'm in my bed and I see the doors open. And I wake up and I go to close the doors, and here I'm thinking like, oh, my cats, like, oh my god. And then I see the cat tower and I see all my cats, and they're just like, I'll never. They're just looking at my door. That right now the door's like behind me, and everything's turned off. And then like I knew it. Like I just knew it, that I was like, no, it can't be. And then when I turn around, I remember I put my hand like into my room to like turn on the lights, and there was my bed, and like right behind my bed where like the headboard is, there was a space between that headboard and the closet, and he was there hiding. I mean, he was hiding, but like, I'm just, I could see him.
So he'd walked in when you were asleep, and he was just standing behind you.
He was behind my bed, so I couldn't. So when I stood up, I couldn't see him, obviously, because he was behind me. Obviously, like, you don't know what to do. So I tried to like close the door. My reaction was to like close the door to my room, but obviously he opened it. So, because you freeze, you don't know.
Yeah, like, do you say hello, or like there's literally someone like, yeah, do you want to come in? Like, far out. Oh my god.
And then so basically he, and like, I don't know, I don't want to be like too graphic, but I was naked because at that time I slept naked because it was relaxing. Not anymore. But so like I was like fully so, and then like obviously I covered myself, like, because he told me like to sit on my bed, and I covered myself, and I was just sobbing, just imagine just me just sobbing. And then like he starts to like, and it was really weird because he was like talking to me about like how he was addicted to drugs, and he really needed to steal from me to get money to get drugs, and he felt sorry, but he was crying. And then like, he was like trying to get me to sympathize with him, but then at the same time he was like threatening me. And then I could see that my neighbor's car pulled up, and that's when he like closed the door to my room because he didn't want the neighbors to like look inside my room. Because remember, my room was really small. My apartment was really small. So he closed the door, and this went on for like an hour because he was packing everything up. And I remember when he was packing up my jewelry, one of the things that he was going to take away was a ring my grandma gave me. I actually, to this day, I still have it. It's right here. And I remember like crying, and I'm telling him like, can I please just keep the ring? And he said yes. So I kept it. And I was writing my thesis at that time, and I was like, can I send my like documents to my email? And he allowed me to like go into my computer, and I was just there. And then everyone was like, why didn't you like text someone like with your computer? And I was like,
you're in
like,
shock, man. Like, what are you gonna do?
And what if he saw me texting someone?
Yeah. It's more important that you email that thesis, evidently.
Yeah. I was just
priorities.
Like all my sources, everything, just like copy, email, send. Like
wow.
And then it was so and I felt so alone, you know. And then obviously I had to walk him to my car because he didn't know which one was my car. So I
Oh
had to
my
walk him.
God.
Yeah. Um, I had to walk him to my car, and like the other creepy thing, he had my phone already, and I sleep with my phone beside my face. So he like grabbed my phone while I was sleeping,
Oh my
which
God.
is like something I realized later on because he was like, "I have your phone." And I was like, oh, "Okay." And then and I went to my neighbors who I had never spoken to in my life. I just knocked on the door. Mind you, it was like 2 a.m. and they opened it, and it was just me crying. And I could see their kids in the background, like, well, who is this lady? Why is she like sobbing? And I tried to like explain, and they called the police. And the police came, and I tried calling my dad, and he wasn't answering. But I knew one of my neighbors, but she lived like in the third floor, and I was just throwing rocks at her at her window, and she woke up. And I told her to like text a friend of mine that I knew she had the contact for, and then he was the one that kind of contacted my family, and my dad was there like at 7 a.m. with the police. But I couldn't sleep. It was just, and I moved out. I moved out immediately because I just obviously I couldn't go back to that apartment.
It's terrifying what happened. Like, even though there's so many like humorous moments in the sense that like
Yeah,
he was trying to be kind. Like, he was trying to be kind, and you're like, can I email myself my thesis, and can I keep my ring, and let me show you my car so you can steal from me? Like,
yeah.
but then the fact that like I do find it funny that a lot of these often incredibly traumatic experiences do have those really human moments of like, oh, let me just help you burgle me real quick, and then you still
like,
really messed up after. Like,
yeah,
I
because
can't imagine.
one of the things he wanted to take was my TV, and my TV was hooked on the wall, and he didn't know how to take it off, and I had to help him. Like, oh, here, this is how you do it. But mind you, I'm still
Oh
crying.
my
This is
God.
happening. I'm like, okay, you go, you take my TV. But it's, I have to laugh because I'm still in awe of that happening. And then, you know, I live with it. You know, I sometimes when I hear a noise, I'm like, I can't sleep. Can't sleep. You know, I check the door to my apartment like 3 times before I go to bed now. I have to sleep with my door closed. I don't like sleeping with my door open. Um, like I said, I can't sleep naked anymore because I need to be ready to like run at any moment. When I go out, you know, I have 20 eyes. I have like I'm always looking around. I'm always like aware of my surroundings. I'm very hyper aware of everything now because like at any moment something can happen. And yeah, that's sort of like the context of how I met BTS, which is kind of sad and not the best way. I remember I always tell people like, oh yeah, I met the way I got into BTS is very interesting. And then when I saw the call for papers for this, I was like, I have an interesting story. Let me let me submit it. Um, yeah, because it was very like all the things that had to happen for me to kind of like get to that point. I always think of serendipity, of the song Serendipity, for that reason. How like all these awful things had to happen. If they wouldn't have happened, maybe I wouldn't be like here right now. And I know that a thought that I have that I know it's not a fair thought, but I know that a lot of times when I try to explain to people the meaning of their songs and like their message and all that stuff, a lot of times they're like, like I don't know, like they don't feel it. And I'm always in my mind like, oh, then you probably live a very happy life, don't you?
Yeah, they're
Like,
just not ready to receive BTS. And I
yeah,
think from everything I've learnt from talking to ARMY and reading and working with, like reading a lot of ARMY's work, is that they have to go through some shit before they're ready to like really, you know, receive
like
what BTS has to
receive,
say. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like, you've got to be
yeah.
open to it. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
another essayist, Martina, said. Yeah, it's BTS are for like people with an open heart and open mind, and like those are the people that will receive them exactly how it's intended. Everyone else just won't get it. And that it's kind of like we're watching two different groups. Everyone else sees like this really like incredibly popular dancing boy band where everyone looks really pretty and it's pop music, but we experience it at a very like a much deeper level and an expansive level, which is the appropriate level that it should be experienced at. But you know, everyone comes at it from their own life experience. So it's interesting that we've all had to go through some stuff to get to this point, and different stuff. Like not everyone's gone through incredibly traumatic stuff like you. But then there's also a lot of people that have gone through incredibly traumatic stuff. And then there's BTS that are like this shining beacon of hope, which is great, right?
Yeah, but not even so much, because I know that this was like the turning point, and I do talk about it because it was like the key point of how I met BTS. But, you know, I could write a whole other essay about things that have happened in my life, and things I've struggled with and how they've helped me. They have nothing to do and not related at all. Because even after even though I do live with what happened and I do live with the PTSD, it's not something I think about anymore unless like the thought is brought up, and sometimes like it invades my brain all of a sudden. But they have helped me with other things, and a lot of it's like self-love, because you know their whole love yourself era and message. But I think as an artist, I do respect a lot of their just like the layers their music has. And I love listening to people talk about their music and analyze like everything from their artwork to their choice of like music video and the instruments they use and all that. And I just, because you know, as a literature major, like I am a nerd about all this stuff. And I was literally watching yesterday a video of someone analyzing how like Yoongi has created these two other personas and how they symbolize how everyone within themselves can have different desires that even contradict themselves, you know, and how it's okay to have selfish desires, and how it's okay. And it was a really good video, and I was just like mesmerized, because those are things I never thought about. And I love listening to people theorizing about their music and about their like just everything. So
yeah, that's great. Because so you're a writer, so obviously you've written this essay, but also you know you write outside of this as well. Can you tell me a little about your work? Like, what do you write about? What does that look like?
Okay, so I started writing very early in I was like 12 years old when I started writing. I started writing because I thought rhyming was fun. And then, you know, that was like when I was in 7th, 8th grade. And then when I got into 9th grade, you know, all those hormones, and all the stuff that I was like going through in my brain, I started using writing more as an outlet. To this day, I struggle a lot with like talking to people and explain to them what exactly is going on in my brain and what I'm feeling. So writing became that source of like, I can just pour everything out. So everything I write about, you know, little moments that I want to somehow record in my lives. Sometimes things I observe, things that like, sometimes they are just ideas like maybe my opinion on something, sometimes how I'm feeling, anger, desperation, anxiety, sadness, heartbreak. I tend to never write about like romantic. I feel like I do not have the capacity to write something romantic for some reason. I've tried, but I feel like everything that comes out is just cheesy and it doesn't really resonate with me. So I just like avoid the topic completely, which I guess is something I can like talk to with a therapist about. Like, why is it that you can't write about the romance? But that's like a whole other thing.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily bad. Like you found what you like to write, and you can write it.
Yeah.
So in looping back to what you're saying about Sugar just before, and like how you like to like understand the different layers of BTS's work and listen to people talking about their creative processes and BTS talking about their creative processes. How does that work in with your writing and your creativity? Like, does BTS influence or inspire what you do?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think, and I'm gonna specifically, I think, talk about Namjoon and Yoongi. I think seeing them as writers, um, I'm always like fascinated by like their process, how they just can like create these images. I was like really excited when Namjoon released Wildflower, because that's I remember growing up, I read the book The Perks of Being a Wildflower, and that was always like, I don't know if you read the book, but that was like a book that was like my favorite thing during high school. That became my entire personality. So when I saw the song, I was like, oh my God, it's coming back. It's coming back. I've always enjoyed the symbolism that comes with a wildflower. The thing about being inspired by BTS, you know, like I said, I've been writing for a very long time. I've been writing way before I met BTS. So it's not like they made me start writing. What they did do, though, more like it's like they inspired me to pick it up again, because it's something that I did leave behind, you know, with college and then looking for a job and focusing on research and, you know, writing essays on the master level takes away, like, you know, I was like, I forgot how to write creatively. I can only write like things that I like, you know, research and argumentative things and like theories. And I think that for a long time I kind of like forgot how to write poetry. So listening to their music and being and then listening to them talk about their music and listening like how they come up with these songs inspired me to like going back to, okay, like what I love writing create like in a creative way. So I think that was the biggest influence in that aspect of my life, that they pushed me. And a lot of the times I ask myself, like, when a good amount of time has happened, like has passed, where I haven't written, I'm like, what would Namjoon say? Namjoon would be really mad at me for not writing anything. Like, what are you doing with your, like, what are you doing? Like, go back to what you were supposed to be doing. So yeah, and on a more like cringy and embarrassing note, I did write the 300-page novel I talked about in my essay that I wrote like in 2 months. It was 100% based on them. It was like a, it was like a, it was like
Okay.
a fan fiction I never posted anywhere. It was just for me and for my friends to read. And then I felt really bad, and I changed, like, I was like, I'm going to make, because I started writing it for fun. And then I was like, I'm going to make this into a thing. And I changed, like, their names. And I changed the setting, like, from, it was no longer in Korea. I was somewhere else. And it was no longer, it was no longer Jimin. It was Jensen. And it was no longer Namjoon. It was God. Nathan. Yeah, I was like,
you you Americanized the whole thing.
Yeah. Because I was like, because I thought, because, you know, in my mind, I was like, I spent a good amount of time writing this. I'm not gonna, if I ever end up publishing it, I don't want it to be like, yeah, like this is a book about BTS. I kind of want it to be something. I was just embarrassed. I was like, oh, I basically just wrote a really long fan fiction.
Wow.
For myself in Google Drive. Yeah, it's really bad. Because I was rereading it, I was like, I need to edit it so bad, and then I started editing it because it's just, and I wanted to change like so many things from the plot, like because the plot was all over the place. Because I was just writing without like knowing where I was going. That's how I ended up with like 300 pages, single space, you know, on Google Drive. So I was like, I want to rewrite it completely. And just yeah, but it was 100% based on, because there was a band and the main character becomes a songwriter for them. You know, it was the whole thing.
Ooh.
So
Living the Your Name dream. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
For sure.
Well, at least you know, hey, you know that you're capable of writing a 300-page book now. So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I did it. It felt very it was very like accomplishing. Like I was like, I did it. Like if I can do this, I can actually like do anything. Because I would sit every day. That's what I would do. I would, like, for 2 months I didn't watch Netflix. I wasn't doing anything. Like I was just at home, just writing and writing and writing. Like I was hyper focused on it, and because I had like 2 friends that were like invested in it, so they would ask for updates. So like every other day I would send them like a chapter, and it was like a whole thing. Wow. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah.
I love that so much.
They were the only people that ever read that BTS fan fiction.
Well, something that we can read of yours, apart from the essay, is your poem in the essay. So I was wondering if you would be so kind as to read out your poem for us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay, so it has no title because I never give. I'm really bad with titles, so it has no title. So today I went up to a rooftop of a 19-story building in the middle of the city with 2 friends. I looked out into the city lights, beacons calling out to the sky, calling out to me. You see, you don't always get to choose what you get to remember. Memories can be haunting, but when you're given moments like these, filled with freedom, remember them. They'll hold you tight and keep you warm as you descend to the ground.
Oh, I love it. You know, when I first read your story, because actually my mum read your essay before I did. Interestingly, because I just gave her a whole bunch, and I'm like, because she works at my company with me, and sometimes I'm just like, hey mum, you know, come read, you know, when I have a lot of stuff to read, I'm like, can you read this? So she's like, hey, look at this one. There's like there's an incident that happens, a really traumatic incident, and I didn't know what it was. And I was reading your essay, and you were standing up on that building, and I'm like, does someone fall off this building? When I was reading that, like, because I was like, is this what my mum told me about? Because that's what it, warm as you descend to the ground. Those are the last 2 lines. I'm like,
no. All right, so interestingly enough, and this is like a joke I have with my friends. I wrote this poem the day it happened because, you know, I was with them. I was hanging out with them, with my 2 friends, which actually one of them is my roommate right now. And we always joke about this and how things happen. And I was with them. We were talking about COVID. You know, I hadn't seen that friend for a very long time because she, you know, first of all, COVID. Second of all, she lives here in New York. So we were just talking about our life plans, what we wanted to do, how COVID basically shook it literally shook the entire world, and how it shifted how we see everything. And I remember I took a picture. It was really nice. It was, you know, being so far away from the ground, seeing the entire city and just being away from it. It was very peaceful and it was a very good night and a very good memory. So I went home and I wrote this. That's when I said that sometimes I just write. I want to capture a moment. Because memories like these are the ones that kind of like keep you company, and, you know, they're just like they're really good. And that night at midnight is when this guy decides to break into my apartment. And I'm like, so when I was writing this essay, I was like, I thought about this poem and I revisited it. I revisited this poem and I edited it a little bit because I think originally it was way, way, way longer. I rambled on a little bit more, but I edited it a little bit more, and I decided to put it in the essay to see if it was allowed. I was like, all right, I'm gonna put it just in case, and I put it because I liked it. And the fact that I wrote it that same day, just hours before that happened, I was like, I might as well. It goes with it. It goes with what was going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a really important like record of life right before. everything changed for you. So now you're going to remember that like in a totally, like in a, I guess, more pivotal way than if life had just gone on without anything happening that night. Like you might look back on that and be like, that's a fond memory. But now you're like, whoa, that was before everything changed, which is really cool. Then that we get to read it in the book.
I think the last part, you're giving moments like these filled with freedom. Remember them. They'll hold you tight and keep you warm as you descend to the ground. That's something I added when I was editing the poem again because I was kind of writing it from the perspective of like, look what happened. Even no matter how shitty life can be, sometimes you do have to hold on to those good moments. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, like BTS fixed my life. Like, no, that's not what happened. They're just a source of like comfort, that, I'm having a stressful day. I'll listen to their music. I can like rely on their message, and I know that I have that support. But I wouldn't say that my life is just like peachy now and like I have nothing. No, I have no struggles and everything's great. But it's the whole idea of like you have to hold on to what is good to kind of be able to kind of deal with what's crap.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting very close to the end. I've got 2 questions for you. All right.
Yeah.
So this one, why I don't know why I'm announcing questions. I want to know what has changed since you've written your essay. Like, so where were you when you're writing your essay? What were you doing? Has anything changed? What does life look like now? Because I know you're in New York City, and has that happened since you wrote the essay?
Yeah. When I wrote the essay, I was still in Puerto Rico, and I moved to New York in July. It was a very spontaneous thing to do, but I knew I wanted to go. But a little bit, before that, when the whole thing happened, I met BTS. I quit my job, which was really toxic. I pulled through and I was able to finish my thesis, my master's thesis. I defended it. I graduated. I started working at a school, and during I was working at that school, that's when I heard the call for papers for this book, and I submitted it. And then I think I was still no. I moved to New York. I moved to New York like within a week. Like it was like I got the opportunity during the summer to come here, and it was on Monday, and I was like, Dad, I'm leaving on Saturday, so I need to pack right now.
Wow. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was really hard. I was really sad because I do talk about it in the essay how like sometimes the things that we want do take us away from places and people we love. But I knew it was something that I needed to do for myself because it had been something that I had been wanting to do. And it was while being in New York that I got the email that I had been like accepted. I had passed like the first round for this book, and I was just like, oh my God, like everything that's happening, like, oh my God, I'm here, finally here. Like I still look back on the fact that, oh my God, like actually I'm in New York. I'm working for a nonprofit organization and in a school, and I'm actually doing a writing workshop, which is pretty cool. I'm designing it, I'm using what I like and I'm doing that, and I'm trying my best to finish writing a poetry book, and I'm trying to edit the book, the 300-page fan fiction of BTS that's not going to be that I will deny forever that is actually based on them.
Yeah, because there's definitely no proof like a podcast that that says that. So if anyone listening ever sees a book come out that's about 300 pages, well, it'll be way more than that in a printed book. Just know that it was never about BTS at no point. Never. And there's no proof to the contrary.
I'll always deny it. I always joke and tell my friends like, yeah, when I published that book and they decide to make a movie out of it and they ask me like, who do you want the soundtrack to be sang by, I'm gonna be like BTS. They're gonna sing the soundtrack of the movie. And then when they ask me if the book is about them, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. It's just a coincidence that the group is 7 guys, and they have all their names start the same way as yours. Like,
and they share the same birthdays, share the same height.
It's
like, amazing.
It's all a coincidence. When I wrote about it, I did not know that you guys existed. It just is. I remember the whole birthday thing. One of my friends told me you should change their birthdays if you're gonna actually try and hide the fact that it is them. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, I guess.
Oh my God, there was a birthday thing. Oh, I love that. That was just a guess on my behalf. I'm like, I bet they've got like everything's the same except for the names and like where they're from.
Yeah, cool. 100%.
Great.
But so that's kind of like when I was in this entire process, I do want to like thank you because it has given me like a little bit of a spark of like, oh shit, I can do this. I want to do this. And it's been a lifelong, since I was 12 years old, it's been a goal. So it's been giving me a lot of like, okay, so on to the next project and on to the next publishing thing I'm going to publish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do it. I will be here supporting you every step of the way. You just send me a DM on Instagram. I mean, we're already hooked up, but you've just got to keep going. And I know you'll keep going. And that's why, it makes me so happy to publish stories because it's a great, even if people don't go on to publish anything else ever again, I just want to affirm like, yeah, you can do the thing. But also because you are a writer, it's like, well, yeah, you really can do the thing. So that is great. Okay. So last question, you've got to answer very quickly. Are you ready? Okay. I always put pressure on people, but whatever. Do whatever you want. Okay. Favorite BTS era, music video and song.
Okay. So I always say that my favorite era is the B era because that was the era that I was like a baby ARMY. And so it was like, oh my God, like everything.
Your first comeback. Yeah.
I mean, technically, I think that when I got into them, the album was already out or was about to come out. I don't know.
Okay.
But
we'll count
it had Dynamite.
Yeah.
It had Dynamite. Dynamite was my first song. And I know that a lot of people don't like Dynamite, but I'm like, it brings so many good memories to me. Music video, though. I think my favorite music video is Spring Day. I cry every time I see it. So I think Spring Day has to be my favorite music video. And song, I feel like it's very cruel for you to ask me which my favorite song. Because I do not know which my favorite song. But I always say that Serendipity is my favorite song. But, like right now I have like, I've been like playing The Astronaut like on the loop. Like it's such a good, I can't stop listening to that song. I don't know. It's even hard to say what are my top 10 songs because it changes depending on mood. Sometimes I'm feeling more like, oh, I want to listen to Not Today. Sometimes I just want to listen to like, I want to listen to Spring Day. I want to listen to Serendipity. So it just really depends. But I'm just going to say Serendipity because it's
a great song.
It's a great song. It has that word serendipity that I love. And it's a beautiful, beautiful lyrics. And it has Jimin, which is, and then like the music video has the whole thing about the moon and the space and
very on brand for you. Okay, I feel that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Paola, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to go practice your name because I'm gonna get good at my Spanish, I swear.
I can teach you.
Okay, great.
Totally teach
Thank you. So when we come back again to talk about your 300-page book that isn't about BTS, I will nail the crap out of your name. Paola.
Yeah.
Paola. Okay, you can just you can like, I'll put you in a position where you have to say my name and you can just mess it up so bad and we'll be even. Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
not said it.
Yeah, just like but I've got to say yours, otherwise it's very awkward. Okay. You can find Paola on Instagram at stop laughing at me. Anyway,
sorry.
Find my dear guest here on Instagram at Moonkives, like moon and then Kives. And if you don't understand the reference, you're probably not an army, but welcome. We are accepting of all people here. But yes, it's a great play on archives.
Thank you.
Yeah, archive. Yes. Anyway, and you can find me on Instagram at the BTS Theorist as well as Walia Eaglehawk. Yes, my name is pronounced Walia. Everyone, Walia. There we go. Now we've done a pronunciation. Okay, on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, you can pick up a copy of I Am Army. We don't need permission from revoltbooks.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Book Depository, or ordering through your local indie retailer. And of course, you can just Google, like, every country all around the world has their own online retailer. And I'm sure the book will be there. And if it's not, just tell them to get it in, guys, please. Anyway, That's all from us. We're going to say goodbye now, and I'm going to go practice saying some names. After all these interviews, I've got a list of names that I need to seriously get my head around. So my apologies to everyone who is not called Paola, as we like to say in Australia, but has the actual Spanish variation. I apologize. Okay, with that, I'm out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.